Armada Book 1 Chapter 10 The Middle Galaxies Part 2. Meanwhile back at Andrew's bridge. Andrew has taken his team near the human planet. Andrew started, "Look at this guy, he looks like my Uncle Denny, the similarity is really uncanny if you guys have seen my uncle." Ellie noted, "His name is Dr. Renan Abatis and he is one of the top scientists in his country called Remedancia. They call their planet Rekan, meaning world. He is working on atomic fission. His other expertise is chemical engineering. We will beam in as a research group from their Museum of Sciences. Also some of the Macs were able to procure some blood samples from the scientists and other humans on the planet and they are now running sequencing and tracing of their lineage. I would suggest we just go down and talk to them rather than beam them in because of the effect of the TP on human lifespan." Gadden said. "I agree with Gadden. Also we can get similar apparel to what they have so we don't stand out." Tony said. "I don't like the way the women dress up. These guys belong to the most advanced country's scientific community but dress up so ugly. These other guys are from the next more advanced country called Lutanen." Ellie said. "Why don't we split up Ellie, Roger and Gadden with me, you guys get another science officer and a Mac and beam to the next most advanced country." Andrew said. "Let's take Captain Bot and Ezra." Tony said. "Rebecca's fine with me. Ezra is one of the best." Roger said. Olive appeared. "I would suggest that you all use the chameleon device so you can dress up using your GX1 uniforms and carry arms and still appear local. You would also need the translators that were adopted from the Ectonos technology. Let's beam down when this guy is working alone." Ellie suggested. Rebecca Bot and Ezra beamed down from one of the ships. Andrew greeted them and, "Captain Bot, Ezra, we need your expertise for the second group when we go down to the planet. Tony will lead the second group." Tony briefed her and Ezra on their plans. All of them got ready with their weapons, translators, and video comms. "The guy is alone already. Let's beam to the next room and talk to him," Ellie said. Olive beamed them to the next room and they strolled into the lab. "Good morning, Dr. Abatis, we are researchers from the Museum of Sciences," Ellie said. "I did not know that the museum is sending a group." Andrew explained, "We are a mixed group of interests and we would like to talk to you about your views on the sciences and social advances." "You mean science and politics?" "Yes," Andrew said. "My view is that science should be for all people, not only for the government to make more money." "Are you reacting to corruption or the fact that the government wants to make more money?" Roger asked. "Both. Corruption leads to less science and less interest in science and more on money." "Do you feel that new science will not benefit your people but government corruption?" Andrew asked. Abatis looked confused. "I just said that. More science will not lead to social benefit because our government is so corrupt it will give the science to the powerful people and get more money into their pockets." "The corrupt should go?" Roger asked. "Yes, but we are talking about extended families in government. You have to remove entire families. You are also into chemical engineering. Have you started work on propulsion systems for air travel?" Ellie asked. "I have, but the country is not yet prepared for any development in this area. I believe there could be faster means of travel but the steam engines are good enough for us. The country is the most advanced among the other nations. How is the middle class taking the corruption in the sciences?" Gadden asked. "I believe the middle class is getting smaller and they believe science is a way out of the reduction of the middle class and turning them over to lower classes." "Have you even considered space travel?" Ellie asked. "I'm a pragmatist. Nothing like that will even be considered by the government in the next 100 years. Unless the other countries start a space program, then this country will feel threatened and will devote more funds to space-related projects," Andrew said. Abatis nodded. "That is completely possible and probable. The other countries have more advanced research on space travel than we do. I know the guys involved but I cannot talk to them or I will be charged with treason. I have my own ideas about the area. For example, the nuclear fission I am developing will be a large source of power and I know space travel requires a large amount of power. Fission is not a clean source of energy and may result in misuse." Ellie commented. "I do not understand what you mean by clean and what misuse can it lead to?" "Like a bomb," Andrew said. Abatis thought for a moment and, "You know, you may be right. I never thought of it that way. Now I have to really think about it whether I should pursue this at all. A bomb from my research can equate to a very large explosion and kill maybe hundreds of thousands in a city. I believe you guys have pointed a big flaw in my research objectives. How did you even equate what I am doing with a bomb?" "We did not, we just conjectured," Ellie said. "You sounded like you know the principles of fission," Abatis said. We don't even know what radioactive material you are working on," Andrew said. "How did you know about radioactivity and how it relates to fission?" We don't, it's just something we thought about. Ellie said. Abaddis noted, first of all, nobody in the world has published anything about radioactivity, and I sure did not publish anything about fission. The government does not even know about fission, and you guys already have your opinions on the results of the project that I am just starting to put on paper. Gadden digressed, our interest really is how science affect the development of society or destruction of it as well. We are not scientists, just researchers trained to ask the right questions. Anyway, I am now immediately stopping all fission work and devote more time into chemistry. I heard you were working on a chemical-based power supply. Can you give us a brief background of this project? Ellie asked. I don't get it, nobody should know about my chemical power project. Anyway, since you are into it, the chemical I am thinking is the one that makes us drunk. The combustibility of this chemical is so high it can be a start of a new form of energy. The chemical combustion must be turned into electrical or mechanical energy to move things like a motor or whatever. Andrew added. Precisely, you guys must understand science really well to even understand combustion and transforming the power to usable energy form. As I said, imagination turns into the right questions. Ellie said. Abaddis smiled, for a while there I thought you were teaching me. Do you feel that war is coming, and is science prepared to help this country gain victory over the aggressor? Roger asked. I would assume that you mean the other country has more advanced military capabilities than our country. I do not believe they have more armored personnel than we do or even attack planes. But the other country have 3 times the number of men than you do. Andrew said. We have more advanced industries and have more capacities. Who do you believe is the older country, Rimadoncia or Lutanen? Ellie asked. We all know our country is the oldest. But all the countries must originate from the same species line. Ellie countered. And branched very little, since our features and all the other nations are the same save for a few minor differences like skin color, height, face. Roger added. Theory suggested that we were brought here by another race not entirely our kind, since we could not trace the evolution of our species like we can with other animals. Which I believe is possible but not probable, because we don't even know if there are aliens out there. Abaddis said. Being a pragmatist sometimes hinders the imagination of science. So how do you think we ended up here with no traceable lineage through the millennia? Ellie asked. I believe we could have evolved from a lower form of animals. But then that would take millions of years to account for present diversities. Abaddis explained. You do not think we evolved millions of years? Andrew asked. There is no evidence that we were here millions of years ago or even 500,000 years ago. The earliest I read was 100,000 years ago, and the bones were almost how we look now, not much different. So the theory we were brought here has some credence to it. Gadden said. Would it be a wonder to know where we really came from? Ellie asked. I have always wondered and wondered about a lot of things, but as I said, I believe in evidence and real data. One of my frustrations as a scientist is that we, have only a few years to live and we're gone. Our work may or may not be continued by other scientists, so some or most of our work is useless to society and would just gather dust in an archive in the museum. Ellie countered, I assure you museums are a great source of science. It is a central source of common knowledge that has been gathered for centuries. Do you believe in God, Dr. Abaddis? Roger asked. Yes, I do, although not particularly the same as most religions. I believe in a God that is all-powerful and kind. I believe God created the universe and we discover his creation through science. Science is the language God communicates his creation to us. As a scientist, I talk to him every day, asking him why he did this thing this way or that. For example, I found out that fission, for example, is a chain of events that are much smaller than molecules and cells. Why is it this way? What was God thinking when he did this? And physics must be one cohesive scheme of things. I ask him and sometimes he answers in some way that I know he did. Sometimes I ask him way down to the barest concept. So you are questioning the beginning of matter and why they exist? Ellie asked. Yes, that's it. So you're saying that beyond the atomic level of things, must be smaller particles that define space and matter? Andrew asked. You guys must have done a lot of research, because atomic theory, which is the basis of my fission, is not even mainstream science. And you may be right, there must be smaller particles that may define space and matter. As I said, museums are a great source of new theory. So please tell us what you think would be beyond atomic level structures. Ellie said. Abaddis went on, I believe that smaller particles exist, but they are so small we cannot measure them. Ellie added, or be sure that what you are measuring is the effect rather than the cause, or vice versa. Let me now do the questioning. How would you attempt to measure these? He looked at Ellie. I guess subatomic particles may be measured statistically, and over several measurements we can conclude a behavior and formulate theory. Ellie answered. See, you coined the word subatomic, and you're right, statistical observation may be the key. But how would you define measurements of entirely new behavior? You have to create a math that would be applicable to those level of particles. Andrew said. Now you refer to particles as if they are familiar to you. How do you know there are particles? There must be several, and they could all be different, exhibiting different behaviors. Roger said. Can you tell me how this math would look like? Abaddis asked. No, but I'm sure it would be exciting. Ellie said. Do you have family, Dr. Abaddis? Gadden asked. I have a daughter who is also a scientist. My wife died 3 years ago. Now I live alone, and it is my work that keeps me going. What does your daughter do? Ellie asked. She researches on animal species, so she lives where the animals are. Is she a scientist as well? Andrew asked. She's very smart and very determined. She has her own mind, and when she said she wanted to work on animals, that's what she did. I believe you should find another employer to enable you to use your capabilities to the max. Andrew commented. There is no other employer that will hire me. You should be reading the papers. They do not like my voice in their politics. My friends in the scientific community have become scarce lately, and I understand why. Even my daughter's friends have not been seeing her lately. So how would you and your work progress if you are being shunned out by the very people you are trying to do good for? Gadden asked. I don't know really. Sometimes I just sit and write my thoughts, because sometimes my work could be frustrating, as is the case for scientific experimentation, but without support from the very community the science is supposed to work for makes work more burdensome than it already is. Scientists get visited by sadness and frustration once in a while. In my case, they visit me every day. I guess our interview is done. Thank you, Ellie said. Andrew was not yet finished. He has not cracked a good joke yet. As if on cue, the team left Abaddis quietly for the next room where they were beamed out. Dr. Abaddis wanted to escort them out the door, but when he reached the next room, they were no longer there. He wondered a little, but his mind was already on a chemical reaction and its measurements. Back in the bridge, Ellie was distraught and almost in tears. I feel he is so lonely and unloved, unrecognized, and even shunned by others in the science community. He believes in the power of science to help people's lives, but all his work will just line up the pockets of corrupt officials. Now he decided to stop his fission work because he wants to prevent people getting hurt. I recommend we get this guy on board. We cannot be emotional about these things, Ellie. Andrew said. I really feel the hurt as a fellow scientist. She was almost sobbing. She wiped a tear on her left eye. Okay, if only to not make you feel hurt, we'll beam him in. Thank you, sir. I will beam him here. Olive, please. Dr. Abaddis appeared before them. Welcome aboard, Dr. Abaddis. My name is General Andrew Mann. Andrew introduced everybody in the bridge, including Olive. Dr. Abaddis looked stunned and remained quiet and unbelieving. I am happy if I can work with you. Let me show you around our ship. Ellie said. Before Ellie and Abaddis could leave, the other GX-1 team beams aboard. Abaddis was startled by their sudden appearance. Ellie stopped and held Dr. Abaddis' arm. Abaddis sees them change form to uniformed soldiers with guns. The scientists we talked to were a bunch of douches. Their focus is money, war, and arms. We tried the other scientists on the list, but none are smarter than the 2 douchebags. I am sorry, General, our mission was unsuccessful. Tony said. It's okay, Tony. We got lucky with Dr. Abaddis. Ellie introduced Dr. Abaddis to the other team. Ellie told them that she was about to show the doctor around, hoping he will decide to work with them in the future. Dr. Abaddis exclaimed, What about my daughter? She's all I have, and she is alone as I am. She is working at this building, Andrew, with some animal forms. Do you want me to beam her up? Olive asked Abaddis. Abaddis said yes, and Olive turned to Andrew. Andrew nodded, and in a few seconds Dr. Abaddis sees his daughter in front of him. Hi, Father, where are we? This is my daughter Layla. He tried to introduce all the others in the bridge, but Olive took over the introduction when he had a problem with their names. I am Olive, and I am Andrew's ship hologram. A ship what? Why did you bring me here? Abaddis asked. Andrew looked at him and said, Believe me, Doctor, it was because we could not stand somebody's behavior to continue. Roger added, It's really because we feel your talents need a new employer. And also so we can learn more about your planet. Olive, can you reprogram the translators so we can give them to our guests instead of on us? Ellie said. I will have the science teams give them to you as soon as they are finished. Olive said. Andrew whispered something to Tony and he smiled. Ellie chose not to mind them. Who are you and where do you come from? Abaddis asked. We are humans and we come from a planet called Earth about 1 BLY away, and we stumbled into your planet as we were creating hopping points over the galaxies. Ellie said. Abaddis scratched his head. I should not have asked that question because my mind could not process your answer. Andrew explained, we are your brethren, your brothers and sisters. Your race was brought over by some aliens who came to Earth and brought some humans to your planet. Why did you not just talk to our leaders instead of me? Abaddis asked. We feel that your world is not prepared for intergalactic relationships. Andrew said. By what criteria did you judge my planet that we are not prepared? Abaddis asked. One is the idea that all humans and alien beings must be treated equally. That their life is important as your own species. That you relate based on this assumption. Ellie explained. So you do not think we are equal to you? Abaddis asked. We do not think you would treat us equal to yourselves. Andrew said. I don't understand how we could not treat you as our equal when obviously you have more advanced technologies. You are obviously above us. Whether we have more advanced or less advanced technology, if you are not the kind of people that treat other people and aliens equally, then you cannot treat us equally. If you cannot treat the poorest or dumbest of your people as equal to you, then you will not treat us equally. If you treat us above you, then you did not treat us equally because you set yourself to be below us rather than equal to us. Roger explained. Gadden added, I am an alien to humans because our species branched off from the human species line millions of years ago. Millions of our kind were stranded in many planets and some remained with very old technologies vastly different from ours, but we treat them as equals because they are. Would you look at me the same as you would your people in your planet? Corruption institutionalized is one form of unequal treatment. For example, the families in power normally view themselves as not equal to the masses but above them, with the power to make themselves rich at their expense. Ellie said. If a government creates a system where people are not treated equally, then that mindset permeates to the people that it is okay to not treat people as equals. Society will not advance without removing this mindset that relates to how they are governed. It would be very hard for a society to remove this mindset if the way it is governed is not changed to one that assumes all people are equal, at least in principle. Tony explained. Andrew concluded, in the end, it would be better to just wait until the society changes to a more egalitarian form before we can relate properly. Well, it depends on the issues at hand. For example, we have been involved in changing the royal family and major leaders of a group of planets because we felt it was the only way to effect change and prevent the catastrophic loss of life. We do not want to beam down from heaven and tell people what to do. People should have the free will to choose their path. For example, one planet we just left them alone because a drastic assistance from us may correct some errors, but in the end if the mindset has not changed, the people will still suffer from the same issues in the future. Tony said. In some cases we planted spies to see and redirect them to what we want, but this is not a good way to effect change, so we are not too excited in doing such things. Ellie said. You take this equality very seriously. Abaddis said. Tony noted, understanding it is more than half of the problem, the other is adopting it in our laws, policies and in actions. As a scientist I must say I have yet to fully understand what equality is. Layla held his father's hand. It's really very easy, father, you only have to think of yourself or the one you love most as the other guy. I do that with the animals. Precisely. Andrew said. Olive announced, Ellie, the results of the sequencing and trace on the scientists and other humans are finished. The most notable result is that Dr. Abaddis is related to your mother's side of the family. Dr. Abaddis appears to be your great-great-great-grandson Ellie, several dozen degrees removed. Andrew and the team laughed loudly. You are my great-great-grandmother? Abaddis asked. They laughed louder. In that case, how far removed am I from General Gant? Tony would be your nephew in the 28th degree at your father's side. Ellie laughed the hardest this time. From now on you call me Auntie Ellie, General Tony Gant. She pointed at Tony. Remove all those relations degrees from the records, Olive. Andrew said. Yes, Andrew. I might find out I'm related to Vicky. Ellie looked at him. Ellie turned to Abaddis. So Dr. Abaddis, maybe you can consider working with us now your daughter is here. I will give it a try, but I need to go down and get my fission materials. What materials are these? We have this kind of rock we call firedon. I discovered that when I transform it into a more inert chemical by adding some ordinary chemicals, it can release a large amount of energy when primed with a certain isotope. That sounds interesting. Why did you not tell us about it before? Andrew said. You concluded for me that the fission will lead to a bomb, which I agreed would happen, so I decided to stop my work. Now since I am not working for them anymore, I can continue my work on this energy type. Well done, Doctor, let's go get them. I'll just stay here, Father. Layla said. I can show you around if you want. Tony quickly offered and Layla nodded. In an hour Ellie and Abaddis have returned with some of Abaddis' materials. Olive, run a scan on these materials and see where they are on the planet. Ellie said. I believe these are more abundant in the nation called Atbanin. The country is run by a king and his family. I believe people think of him as a good king. The country is almost as big as Lutanin, but I have not been there for a long time. And news of that country is not being circulated in our country. Olive added, Dr. Abadis is correct. The country called Atbanin indeed have very large deposits of that mineral called Firedon. How large? Ellie asked. Over 500 billion tons under Atbanin alone, and most of the deposits are under an uninhabited desert area to the north. We can beam in any rock you like. Get something we can work on and beam it at the warehouse bay. You found the deposits in Atbanin? Yes, and Olive is getting a sample for us right now. Let's walk to the warehouse bay. We need to move you to my ship so you can establish your work there. I just need to tell General Man. When they reached the warehouse bay, they were surprised by the size of the rock. This rock is so huge we can fit 2 of my laboratories in it. I notice there are diamond crystals jutting out of the rock. There are large deposits of diamond in the area as well, over 200 billion tons. Olive said. Diamonds are valuable to our planet as a decorative device. They are very valuable and expensive to buy. Olive explained, we use diamond to store energy. Is the rock stable or will it blow up our ship? It is very stable. We can cut it like any rock. Can we cut it with laser? What is laser? Concentrated beam of light. Why don't I just use the manual way first to cut it and deal with laser later? What kind of a king is the ruler of Atbanin? We can go and meet him if you like. I know one of his top scientists. Olive, beam us to where General Man is, please. General Man, Gadden and Roger were at the mess hall eating away when Ellie and Abadis appeared. Ellie told him about the Firedon and the diamond. I would suggest we recon this country out and see what's up, if only for the Firedon and the diamond. Okay, but get something to eat first. You don't want the good doctor to go hungry, Ellie. Andrew said. Ellie and Abadis got some food, and this food is amazing. Abadis said. Andrew pointed, it's called ice cream. It's made from the milk of an animal we call cow and sugar then frozen. Abadis was not listening to Andrew but was busy eating away. Then Tony and Layla showed up. Father, this ship is amazing and we went to 2 more ships and 2 planets. What are you eating? Dr. Abadis just raised his cup and pointed to the counter. Tony led Layla to the counter and got her some ice cream. This food is amazing. Layla said. I guess like father like daughter. You know, Dr. Abadis, you have a pretty good-looking daughter. Andrew said. Yes, thank you. And I keep telling her to get a male partner so I can have some grandkids. I think she's too smart for her own good. I am just waiting for the right man, father. Ellie is unmarried too, aren't you, Ellie? Roger quipped, Ellie is different. She's Ellie Rivers. GX1 laughed except Ellie. Ellie faced Layla. Layla, what do you think of General Tony Gant here? Layla smiled and, he's very smart, attractive and has a way of talking to women. I agree with you, Layla, and as accomplished as he is also unmarried. Andrew pointed out. Ellie told them the story of the Firedon and the diamond. We can bring some diamond for the king to make it worth his while. Abadis suggested. How much is good enough? Ellie asked. If you give a handful, that would be much more than enough. Layla said. Olive, get some men at the warehouse to pack some cut diamond into several bags so we can bring them. Andrew said. We would have to talk with his scientist friend so we can get an audience with the king. Ellie said. Sounds like a good plan. Tony, stay here with Layla. I think 4 of us with Dr. Abadis would be a crowd already. Andrew said. As you wish, General Man. Tony bowed. Yes, I wish it, General Gant. They continued to eat and Ellie got a second serving while the others were on their 3rd plate. I feel so hungry all of a sudden. Maybe it's looking at all of you. Abadis said. Yes, father, I too seem to feel so famished. Layla added. That's one of the effect of out TPs. Ellie said. She then explained the TP technology and how it affects the human body. Maybe I can comprehend what you just said when I get settled in. Abadis said. After a few minutes, Olive beamed for bags full of diamond in the mess hall. Are all of those bags full of diamond? Abadis asked. He stood up and opened a bag. Got one large rock and held it to the light. Yes, we have a lot of diamond here on this ship. We use it for our weapons, to store energy and as paperweight. Andrew said. Here, look at this pistol. See the diamond energy pack here on this handle. We have hundreds of thousands of this going around. Diamonds are useful to us. Roger explained. This rock I hold in my hand is worth all my wages in 50 lifetimes. The king will be very pleased to receive you, I mean us. So where is your friend working, doctor? Andrew asked. I don't have a map, but I know how to get there. Olive appeared. You can instruct me to show you whatever place you like, doctor. She showed a hologram map of the country. Dr. Abaddis pointed to a place. Can you make it bigger? Olive made the map bigger, almost surrounding the group eating on the table. It took a while for Olive with instructions from Abaddis to locate his friend's lab. They found him working in one of the government labs alone. Dr. Abaddis, we can beam ourselves into this room and walk over to the other room to meet your friend. Andrew said. Abaddis and Ellie were still eating, so they waited for the team to finish. After a few minutes, they got their chameleon devices and then they beamed themselves to an empty room next to the lab. Dr. Millen, how are you? Dr. Abaddis, I'm surprised you are here. What brings you here in my tiny lab? Millen asked. Abaddis introduced Andrew, Ellie, Roger, and Gadden. When Gadden shook Millen's hand for slightly longer than he should and he found out he was part Mac, part human. He said hello telepathically and Millen was taken aback. Who are you really? How can you talk to me like that? Gadden explained, Andrew, Dr. Millen is half Mac, half human, and he has been here for more than 80 years. His father was a Mac named Geestin and his human mother is Rintina. He does not experience the collective since he was born. He thinks he has telepathic abilities with his father and some relatives who may really be other Macs. How did you know all that? Millen asked. I believe we should bring him back to the ship so he can meet his brethren. Gadden said. I think that's a very good idea. Olive, please. Andrew said. When they beamed to the bridge there were Macs already coming through the door to meet their first Mac and human hybrid. Abaddis found the Macs touching Millen and Millen touching back. Millen seems to have tears in his eyes. This is incredible. I am so happy to meet all of you. I am happy to see all your experiences. Millen said. Apparently, they have a small Mac community on the country and the people think of them as just another race on the planet because they have the same physiology. The other Macs seem to have lost connection with the collective, maybe because of the distance from the nearest node. Gadden explained. After a while only one Mac was left holding Millen's hand and he is extracting all of Millen's experiences and transferring them to the collective. Why did you come to me? Millen asked. We wanted to talk to the king and bring some diamond gifts. Now our priorities changes a little bit because of you being a Mac. Andrew said. Gadden explained, Andrew, Millen has many experiences with the royal family. He is one of the king's closest advisors. He usually roots for peace as contrasted to the king's military leaders who wants to go to war with their two larger neighbors. They have a very large and loyal army and with the Mac's help created more advanced weapons and planes and armored vehicles. If they go to war, they may win over the two countries combined. That's saying a lot, Gadden. Olive, can you scan the military capabilities of the three countries and give me possible outcomes, please? Andrew said. I would take some time to get data from the field. Let me get back to you in a few minutes. Why don't I take a few Macs and pay their community a visit? Gadden suggested. I think that's a good idea. In the meantime, Millen can take us to the king. Andrew said. Yes, I can take you to him. Let's go back to my lab, from there we can take my transport to see the king. Andrew, Ellie, Abaddis and Roger went with Millen back to his lab, each carrying a bag of diamond. They got out of the lab into a truck-like vehicle that runs on steam. Your city is very clean and your streets are wide. No pollution and no overcrowding. Ellie noted. What's pollution? Millen asked, surprised. Dirty air. Andrew said. How could air get dirty? Millen asked. Never mind, Millen. There are not a lot of vehicles in your streets. Ellie said. Not yet. The travel to the king's palace took only less than an hour. The guard at the gates recognized Millen and let them in without even talking to Millen. They parked the vehicle very far from the palace and they began to walk. Millen, how old is this place? Andrew asked. Almost 200 years old. There was an older but much smaller palace at the back of this main building. That's old considering your history. Roger said. What's the king's name? Andrew asked. His name is 5th King Boronatu. He is the 5th king of the Boronata dynasty, stretching more than 200 years. He is a very accommodating king and takes care of his people as his own family. He and his people share a common hatred for corruption and greed that the two other countries have a lot of. The way they see it is that they would rather go to war to help the people ruled in tyranny and oppression than let the other countries be. What's in it for them? Andrew asked. Millen explained, nothing really except more land and more people. They think of it as a war for consolidation. They feel the war will be short since the oppressed people will rally under the king and accept his rule. My position has always been to prevent death and bloodshed, so I propose to send spies and instigators to the other countries. A war will cost hundreds of thousands of lives. Unknown to a lot of people outside our country, our army is very large, well-equipped and highly trained. We have weapons that will send exploding projectiles from afar, something the other side does not have. We have thousands of very large armored steam attack vehicles that can carry more than 50 personnel and 4 large barrel tirades. Before entering the building, Olive appeared before the group and told Andrew that if they instigate a war on the two larger countries, they could win with 80% probability. They will lose more than 180,000 lives and the other two will each lose 3 times this number. The war will be over in less than a year. It seems Gadden may be right. Andrew said. The outcome is a common assumption among our leaders. They entered through the middle columns and approached a large receiving area with 2 guards in regal uniform. The staff at the right side just waved to Dr. Abaddis and one of the guards opened the large door. King Boronatu greeted the group. Welcome, Dr. Millen. Who are your friends? This is Dr. Abaddis, I believe you remember him. He's the top scientist from the other country and these are his friends. Millen introduced each one of the team and they bowed before the king. Yes, your reputation precedes you, Dr. Abaddis. You are welcome to work for the palace anytime you like. Millen got the bags from the 4 and put them in front of the king and opened one bag. Boronatu was visibly surprised. Why are you bringing these diamond to me? So we can talk to you, Abaddis said. About? Boronatu asked. We would like you to not go to war with the two countries. You may win but only after a long war where a lot of lives will be lost. Andrew said. As I said before, you may win but people will die. Millen has always had this position. It's nothing new. Actually, I am leaning towards going to war. You will not benefit from this war economically. You are not sure the people will accept your kingdom. Remember they are used to elective officials. Andrew said. See where their elected officials took them. I have nothing against their election institution. I just don't like to see people being oppressed, treated like stupid beings and suffering from lack of food while those in power have much more than they need. Boronatu noted. This is the sentiment of our people as well. And they know it. Even the other countries know this and I have sent spies to see how they would react to an invasion. Don't you think they should be able to decide where their country should go? Andrew asked. If you remove the corrupt officials, the people will still see corruption as normal and their society will go back to being corrupt, only this time with different officials. The mindset of the people must change. Ellie pointed out. An invasion to remove their leaders and place new leaders that may or may not turn corrupt is better than the corrupt leaders they have now. How do you change their mindset if you do not start to do anything? Boronatu argued. You can send diplomats to try to negotiate and convince their leaders that corruption is the cause of their economic problems. Andrew said. Millen explained to Andrew, we have already sent our diplomats and they have sent them all back and now they are angry at us for those that we sent. That is why we operate in secret from then on. So your objective is annexation of their lands and people to your kingdom? Andrew asked. At first not, but lately I feel a bigger kingdom would bring better benefits of governance. What happens if you die? Who will make sure your system of government will continue as you intend it to be? Ellie asked. Boronatu explained, I have in place a council where our laws are crafted and decreed. Each member leaving the council would be replaced by election by the people. They can either leave by choice or by retirement, so the election to the council will entail a few people at a time. If your kingdom becomes big, then you would have to govern by dividing them into areas and assigning leaders or councils to the areas. Andrew said. We presently have 12 districts governed by a district leader with 4 assistants. They are elected by the people they serve in the district. These leaders all report to the council and they can be replaced by the council even if they are elected. Millen noted, actually, these are new developments and we are still looking at how the structures are performing. But the idea of the absence of the king was what prompted the creation of these governing bodies. Besides, the king cannot do all the work. We decided the king is just that, the king, and should only decide matters the council and district leaders cannot decide on. Boronatu added, we do have a succession rule, I can choose who will succeed me from among my children. The council and district leaders must always have the people's welfare in mind and so should the king or queen. Corruption is very much disdained and avoided. In your country people think corruption is bad, but in the other countries they think corruption is as normal as night and day, and this mindset is not so easy to change. Andrew said. Boronatu explained, my position is that to change people's mindset you must start somewhere and invasion is a viable option. How do you accept the massive loss of lives? Millen asked. The people have accepted this eventuality. Boronatu said. Why don't you put the question to go to war or not on the ballot? Andrew asked. That will remove our benefits from a surprise attack. News of what's happening in this kingdom is not circulated in our country. They have no idea of the state of your military. I don't. Okay, tomorrow I will ask my council to decide whether to put the war to a vote or not. However you decide, it is still war. Ellie noted. As a ruler, sometimes this is what you deal with. For the greater good of all the people involved and for the future of our land, a war for consolidation is sometimes called for. Why not send assassins and eliminate their leaders? That will weaken them and will result in less loss of lives. Andrew said. Borinata thought for a while. I have been thinking about that and I believe that would be our opening move. If you win, your lands will triple and governance will be more problematic. There will always be people who will not accept your rule and think of you as the usurper. They will be the new rebels. Andrew said. I guess that's our fate and that's their fate. I can accept the problem coming our way and we'll deal with it properly. Let's not talk about this anymore. I have been thinking about this for months now and tomorrow the council will decide whether a people's vote is needed or not. What other business do you come here for? They would like to mine some diamond in the northern deserts. Millen said. That's fine. I don't really know if there are diamonds there, but I want 20% of all your diamond mined from our lands. Agreed. There are also some minerals that we may mine like fire dons. We will give you 20% of these as well? Or would you like their value in diamond? Andrew asked. Just pay us in diamond. For every 10 tons of the fire don or any other mineral, give me 1 ton of diamond. I think that's fair. Just be honest about it. I will have Millen check your numbers. How would you know Millen will not cross you? Ellie quipped. You don't know Millen like I do. That's a matter of perspective. Ellie countered. We agree to your terms. Andrew announced. They left the palace and headed back to Millen's lab and back to Andrew's ship. When they appeared at the bridge, Tony and Layla were there to greet them. Tony explained, the Macs are having a reunion party at the main hall. They beamed a large portion the Mac community, over 1,000 of them, to the mess hall. It's a good thing our main mess hall was built for 2,000 people. But then we have thousands of Macs on board. Olive, tell the Macs not to divulge our existence to the planet below when they return. Andrew said. So how did your meeting with the king go? Tony asked. We got permission to mine the diamond and firedon or any other mineral. We just have to pay him in diamond. Ellie said. The thing is, war below is now imminent. They would win, but after a large loss of life. Andrew said. Millen noted, I believe war will start in less than 4 months. In the meantime, all your Macs are welcome to stay here. Also you, Layla and Dr. Abaddis would transfer to my ship. I have labs there for you to use. Ellie said. Great, Ellie. You can start work on those firedon ASAP. Andrew said. Gadden walked into the bridge. The party is in earnest. Aren't you guys going to join the party? Tony answered, yes, in a few minutes. The place is too crowded. Even the human and Inky crew are there. Some of the Macs are planning to bring them to their home worlds for a tour tomorrow. Gadden said. That's great. Your council will see this as a direct fruit of our Hops project. Andrew said. I am still amazed by all this. I would like to join the tour as well. Millen said. Can we join them, Father? Layla asked. Go ahead, enjoy yourselves. It will be a real eye-opener for all of you. Ellie said. Andrew noted, yes, you may go, Tony. Ellie just smiled at Andrew.